Welcome everyone. As Rena said, my name is Garry Bryant. I'm the Product Manager for Southern World Australia. Firstly, I'd like to commend all of you for taking the time and displaying the interest in developing your career in the inbound tourism industry by participating in the National Development Program. I trust that you've found the presentations over the past 3 weeks interesting and worthy of taking your time to participate. I hope you'll find tonight's presentations absorbing and insightful as well. It works. So, who am I? I'm a 50-something travel professional. I started my career with TAA, Trans-Australia Airlines, which was one of Australia's 2 original domestic airlines, the other being Ansett. TAA was government-owned domestic airline. Ansett was privately owned and established by Sir Reginald Ansett. TAA was absorbed into the Qantas operations in the early 1990s. I lived in Los Angeles for 10 years, from 87 to 96, firstly working with a wholesale reservations company specialising in the South Pacific, and then this was followed a couple of years later with a stay at Brendan Tours as South Pacific manager. I'm an avid Sydney Swans fan and member since 1999, and hopefully we'll beat Freo this weekend. Southern World Australia is my current role and have had a variety of roles with the company since starting in 1999. First off as operations manager with Thomas Cook, which was taken over by Southern World in 2000. Then combined role as operations and product manager, and solely product manager since 2003. So who are we, Southern World Australia? We're a medium-sized inbound tour operator, or ITO. We've been operating in Australia since 1991. We have 14 happy staff, I hope, and the company is privately owned and operated. We have our own offices in Sydney, Auckland and Christchurch in New Zealand, and Nandi in Fiji. We promote ourselves as the only privately owned inbound tour operator with our own offices in each country. We don't have a corporate connection with any other overseas wholesalers or other companies involved in tourism, inbound tourism in Australia. So what is an ITO? A lot of questions today and answers. An inbound tour operator, ITO, often known as a ground handler, a receptive company, or a destination management company, is a company that specialises in selling travel, Australian travel in particular, to overseas travel distributors. An ITO provides consultation for itinerary planning, product selection, and coordination of travel arrangements for the overseas visitors, by working with our clients overseas on the one hand and with Australian suppliers on the other. We bring all the components, transport, accommodation, sightseeing and meals together to create a fully inclusive itinerary. There are over 120 ITOs that are members of ATEC, and there's a lot more out there as well. Some ITOs deal with all overseas markets, while others specialise in one specific market, Japan for example, or one segment of the market, incentives or educational touring. Often an ITO is an Australian branch of a parent company in the origin market, especially common in Japan and Korea. ITOs can range from 1 staff, through the 14 that we've got, up to over 100 with a number of the main ITOs. Some suppliers call us oxygen thieves or ageing dinosaurs and say we may not be around in 5 years' time due to the internet. I believe our role will become far more important as the demand to specialise and offer unique travel experiences grows. Funnily enough, I pinched that last reference to being extinct in 5 years from a presentation that was made by our Managing Director to a National Development ATEC address in October 2008. So 5 years on, we're still here, we're stronger and doing better business, best business in our history, in terms of both value and yield. So I don't know about ageing dinosaurs. Ageing, yes, dinosaurs, no. Our Australian partners. Accommodation, full range, 3 to 5 star hotels, husband and wife bed and breakfasts, 15 suite island resorts or 300 room resorts. High-end hotels, suburban and country motels, family-run farms. Transportation, covering limousine operators with fleets of Australian and European-made luxury sedans. Shuttle transfer companies, coach charters for large group transfer and touring, rail journeys, the Garn, Indian Pacific, Spirit of Queensland. Sea-link ferries to and from Kangaroo Island, just a few examples. Sightseeing ranges from a range of sightseeing styles, from owner-operated private Land Cruiser tours, unique walking tours of the city, bars and laneways, mid-sized personalised tour companies operating such as Go West Tours in Melbourne and large coach companies such as Grey Line. Attractions, Skyrail, Bridge Climb, Taronga Zoo, Hillsville Sanctuary, a whole range of attractions throughout the country. Cruises, Captain Cook Cruises, WA for example. Reef cruise companies operating from Cairns, Port Douglas, the Whitsundays, Airlie Beach and Hamilton Island. Restaurants, iconic tourism locations in the Rocks, Melbourne's Tramcar restaurant and small restaurants that inject the local flavour, no pun intended there, into a client's itinerary. So, working with our Australian partner suppliers, what are we actually doing? We're contracting with them each year more and more product in most of the earlier mentioned categories: accommodation, sightseeing, transport, etc. This involves requesting by email generally an update of all their products and individual supplier offers, changes from the previous years, for example room configurations, days of operation, etc. We currently contract with approximately 650 supplier companies representing more than 2,500 products throughout the country. And that represents roughly 15,000 rates that get loaded into our database every year. So it's a pretty high volume. We establish preferred relationships with selected suppliers by identifying the suppliers that are offering the best product within an individual subset of their area. 4-star hotel, for example, large coach sightseeing companies, small personalised touring, and assess their suitability to meet a cross-section of the markets that we're working with, whether they can offer us allotments or free sale. The ease of the relationship, the smoothness of bookings, the guest stay, the accounting side of it, so from start all the way through to the finish. And of course, what commission levels we get and how low our net rates are. So what are the traditional distribution channels? So I've gone over who we are as a company, what an ITO is. So how do we distribute the products that we handle? So we've first of all got the consumer who goes to their retail agent in an origin country. That retail agent will typically go to a wholesaler in market who's probably got a specialisation in Australia as a destination. They come to us as the specialty supplier of the products, and we in turn go through to our suppliers. We've then got us going back to the wholesalers, or the suppliers coming back to us rather. We go back to the international wholesalers, onto the retail agent, and then to the consumer. So there's effectively 3 levels in between the supplier and the end user of that product. How has the distribution system changed over the past few years? The previous slide showed you it was a nice, simple one direction and the other direction between each of the layers, and levels of commission that we would anticipate each of us to earn. So while we get 30% expected, it's split up between the other 2 layers in the distribution channel, so 10% each effectively. But over the years, and more recently probably the last 5 to 10 years, that distribution system has changed quite considerably. So you can see that we've got product suppliers dealing directly with consumers, dealing directly with retail agents, dealing directly with international wholesalers, and still dealing with us, fortunately. But we've also seen inbound tour operators dealing directly with the retail agents, and in some cases directly with the travel consumer as well. Okay. And at different points, you're still offering the same levels of commission, but when you're working in this sort of model, where everyone's dealing with everyone, you need to maintain the integrity of that commission and distribution pricing model, so that if a product supplier is dealing directly with the consumer, they're still charging the same retail value that they would be if they were giving 30% commission away to us, or 20% if they were dealing directly with a wholesaler, or 10% if they were giving it to a retailer overseas. So it's really, really important to maintain the integrity of that pricing strategy. So who are our overseas partners in the markets that we work in? So our overseas partners are wholesalers, as indicated on that previous slide, some specialist tour operators, and selected travel agents. Our markets consist primarily of USA, Canada, UK, selected European countries, mainly Scandinavia, Germany, Netherlands, and a little bit of Denmark. And of course, Latin markets, which Ruben de la Fuente will be fully briefing you on later. We work with first and second tier wholesalers. Typically, a first tier wholesaler would be considered to be a major wholesaler in market, producing 1 or more brochures a year. They may participate in cooperative marketing campaigns with Tourism Australia or with estate tourism organisations. Second tier wholesalers, which we work with more often, generally don't have that funding to produce their own brochures or participate in marketing campaigns. However, their own specialisation or network of past clients provide or participation in, let's say, the Aussie Specialist Program. They are producing a large volume of passengers to Australia from their markets. In working with our overseas partners, we provide them with access to our database effectively. So all those 15,000 rates and products that we load every year, we provide them with access through a dedicated web link. This technology allows our agents to look at the prices specific to them if they are a wholesaler or a retailer. So we've honoured that distribution system by the way in which our system calculates the end price to them, based on the predetermined markup which is applicable to the individual product. The wholesaler can put together a quote literally while their agent is on the phone, and it enables them to try and capture that booking at that time. It's backed up by instant confirmations and potentially securing, as I say, the booking while they're talking to their travel agent. And that covers all of those services that I mentioned previously. Your shuttle transfers, your private transfers, your accommodation, your sightseeing tours, your extended touring, etc. The wholesaler can then download an itinerary or a quote off our system and just flick that out by email to the client or the agent. So in some respects, they can be on the phone, put it all together, download it, email it, and the client can then be looking at a hard copy of what the proposed itinerary is that they can be working with. So a lot of what we do also, outside of our online environment, is through just general email communication or Skyping with our agents, so that we're providing them with as much hand-holding in planning the best itinerary for their clients. So our staff participate in ATEC events on an annual basis, so the workshops and famils that take place, just so that we've got a total overall knowledge of Australia as an entire destination. Okay, market statistics. What are these markets all about that we're working with? Since the GFC commenced in late 2008, There's been a general decline in Western market dominance. That has been due to a number of factors, including the economic circumstances in the Western source markets and the strength of the Australian economy that is impacted with a high Australian dollar. Tourism 2020 targets has brought about an increasing prominence of China and other Eastern markets. Anecdotal evidence would indicate a reduced proportion of marketing dollars is being spent in the traditional Western markets. For the purpose of examining the Western markets, the visitor arrival statistics I'm going to go through with you now, and our own business, include the USA, Germany, UK, Scandinavia, and the Netherlands. This slide here shows that over the last 5 years, since 2009, so up to June 2013, the impact of the GSC on arrivals has been varied. Arrivals actually increased in 4 of the 7 markets in 2010, but fell away very quickly in 2011 and 12. Our own business performance actually reflects this and the movements in arrivals from these source markets. So from the USA, for example, group series business, or group business, particularly series groups, have performed well above expectation. The number of passengers per group has been, on average, in the mid to high 30s, whereas in the past it's been probably in the low to mid 20s. The number of scheduled tour departures that materialise is probably upwards of 70 of what they've originally anticipated will operate. Additionally, the fallout that we experienced in the high-end FIT market, particularly in 2011, has rebounded considerably, with the business in this segment probably up about 50% from 2012. From Germany, group series business was at its lowest level for us in 2012, and there's been a slight increase in 2013. UK, FITs are our major segment in this market. Business in this area has been soft, but we are fortunate to have some key partners who have been increasing their business off a relatively small base, admittedly, and therefore increasing our share of the market as well. Group series business from the UK has been very soft, unfortunately. Excuse me a sec. From Scandinavia, business from the Scandinavian countries, predominantly Denmark, Norway and Sweden, has never fallen off to any degree since the GFC and is now about 10% higher than pre-GFC levels. This is in part due to the fact that these countries have not been impacted by the fall of the euro. Our business from Sweden in particular is also on the increase as a consequence of securing new business from that market and therefore increasing our market share. From Canada, there's been a gradual decline in visitor arrivals from this market. 115,000 down to 111,000 over those 4 years. We've seen a consistent increase in our business from that market, again due to mid-range and high-end FITs, and another example of us as a business increasing our own market share. So what are the market trends? As the economies of the USA, UK and selected European countries continue to improve, along with the softening of the Australian dollar, the trend is likely to continue in an upward trajectory. Results of a recent biannual trip barometer survey by TripAdvisor showed that 27% of survey respondents from Europe plan to travel to Australasia in 2015, which is up from 18% just thinking about a visit in 2014. Similarly, in North America, 17% of respondents were keen on an Australasian trip in 2 years, which was up from 10%. So what are the booking patterns like? Well, New Year's is going gangbusters. really hit the jackpot with New Year's this year again, and it's just suddenly come out of the blue in the last 6 weeks, particularly out of the US market, where our inquiry level compared to last year is probably about 200% over what it was last year. And now it's difficult to get the accommodation, of course. From a number of our markets, the booking lead time is lengthening. Over the past few years from the US and Canada, our FIT business books generally in a 2 to 4 month lead time. This has been stretching out to 4 to 6 months. Ad hoc group business from the US books 6 to 9 months in advance typically, and series groups from most markets are now booking 12 to 18 months in advance. The UK traveller is now booking up to July 2014. Traditionally always a long lead time market, the UK was booking only up to 4 to 6 months in advance over the past few years. These are now out to 8 to 10 months. Some of the challenges and issues. Competition from other destinations. As you see from the graph, international arrivals into Oceania in 2010, Oceania's share was 1.2%. In 2030, it's projected that it will only be 1%, and Australia forms a pretty big part of Oceania. Additionally, worldwide travel to advanced economies compared to emerging economies will be reversed. In 2012, China reached number 1 in international tourism expenditure ahead of Germany, United States, and the United Kingdom. While Australia is a beneficiary of this new world order, there needs to be a balanced strategy to the marketing of Australia. There are many destinations around the world chasing the elusive emerging markets of China, India, Russia, Brazil, and Australia is included in those that are doing the chasing. Important for Australia in this worldwide pursuit of these markets is that we get the balance correct, the balance of marketing expenditure correct between these new emerging markets and the traditional Western markets. If we don't get the balance correct, then there'll be another national tourism organisation out there that does, and we'll lose the market share that we have. What are some of the opportunities? Oops, what did I just do? Sorry. Okay, some of the opportunities, and I'll try and be quick because I've gone over time, I think. One of the key striking factors in doing some research is that 65% of all holiday and VFR arrivals into Australia are actually return visitors. Across the Western markets I've been discussing, the average is actually 49% are return visits. This translates into a very high satisfaction level with first-time travellers. So Australia doesn't necessarily, as many might think, need to be a once-in-a-lifetime destination. Across the demographic age spectrum, we should aim to capture that first-time traveller, the backpacker or the 20-something. With such high satisfaction and return factor, across their travelling lifetime of, say, 40 or 50 years, that person could do 4 or 5 trips to Australia, see new and intriguing parts of the country. And that's only 1 trip every 10 years, effectively. So we must meet that desire to return by constantly evolving the product that we're offering, opening new parts of the country in a sustainable way to the wonders of tourism, and reap the economic benefits and rewards. And in summary, the Western markets contribute to visitor arrivals, they're 59%. Their contribution to total visitor expenditure is $11.5 billion. As the individual markets within this segment move through their development cycle from emerging to maturing markets, there will be countless opportunities to build on our past successes. We must ensure that our product offering is relevant to the desires of the Western markets by constantly refreshing and evolving. Maintain the Western market share of the marketing dollar. It's much harder to regain a market once it's been lost. And there's nothing like Western markets. Thank you.
Much for that. Is there any questions for Garry?
Yeah.
Or Southern World in general? Western markets in general? Yes, like that.
Yep.
Would you be able to give more information on that? Do you know what the reasons behind that
I think it's just people's general confidence. So as the economies in the UK, Europe and the US improve, people are more prepared further out to make that commitment to travel. When the economies are rocky, they're just not prepared from a work perspective to be putting in their time, taking the leave, and not knowing whether they're going to have a job when they come back. So it's all to do with economic confidence, plus the fact that the exchange rate's a bit low as well, I suspect.